All right, welcome everybody to this little essay review of Marius Hobbhahn's just released post on what the short-term plans are for us to make sure that AI goes well. Marius Hobbhahn is the CEO of Apollo Research. They've done some safety testing on the recent O1 models from OpenAI and are also working with various organizations on testing whether models scheme, so whether they're trying to cheat, manipulate, or deceive users or researchers. And this was just published today and talks about what sort of plans we can have in a world where general intelligence, which means intelligence that can replace a top researcher at an AI lab, if that arrives in 2027, which multiple lab members and so on are thinking about. Marius says himself that this is his median timeline, which means that he expects this to happen, and it could also be before or it could be later. So this is not a necessarily a conservative or a pessimistic post in that sense. It is just his median take. So here he's also working with the assumption that AI labs, they don't want to wait more than 3 months as a result of these plans. So they don't want to have a delay on their development of AI as a result. So stuff like pausing AI won't work here. And his first part here is that short timelines are in general plausible. Again, this means that general intelligence is very close. He lays out a short little list of things that he would expect on the median timeline that AIs would be able to do over the next few years. So machine learning engineering tasks that take humans 30 minutes, fairly reliable, which is already what it does in 2024. So recent work from Meter showed that. And then 2025, reliably do 2 to 4 hour machine learning engineering tasks. I'm personally a little bit more bullish on this. I think it'll go a little bit faster, unfortunately for our plans and for our prospects for safety. But I think this is a great median timeline to work with. And so he uses this perspective of the AI researcher. So how good is it at working on these things? Crucially, after the general intelligence is then achieved, 2028, he would expect AI companies to have 10,000 to 1 million automated AI researchers. And so this is what Diomede, Anthropic CEO, also talks of in his essay, Machines of Loving Grace, an essay that maybe we should actually take a look at, but that talks about what his future vision for the world looks like. And he talks of, he speaks of this potential where you have a data center with hundreds or thousands or millions of agents running on it, doing a lot of stuff such as solving climate change, bettering science, etc. Unfortunately, and what Marius is also hinting at here, that vision is probably one that won't last much longer than a few years before we have stuff like robotics happening. And I highly recommend looking at Unitree's recent, so that's UNITREE, their recent videos on the performance of their robots, because I think it won't take very long until we have extremely human capable robots. And actually, I am probably more I expect these to hit the shelves already by 2027 at the latest. So that's that. Then he mentions here that he believes in these timelines due to the last decade of progress. So GPT-2 was released in 2019, or was created in 2019, where OpenAI was like, oh no, this is too intelligent, we cannot release this. They, of course, released it along with every subsequent version of the GPT models, and now O3 as well. And in general, this progress has been much faster than everyone anticipates. And the companies themselves, as a result of this progress, also highlight that they expect this to happen by 2027 or so. That's the comment from Diomede, leading Anthropic, who is one of the top 2 or top 3 AI labs out there. And it also seems like there are no major blockers to AGI. So there was this question if deep learning or if scaling had hit a wall, this question of, okay, if we just throw more computer power at these systems, will they actually get better, or will there be some sort of conceptual wall where, but the human brain implements very complex architectures, we probably need to implement that as well. It turns out that, and as Marius also mentions here, it turns out that stuff like O1 and O3, you can actually use what is called inference time compute. So spending a lot of computer power after you have trained the model to actually just let it think for a long time. and achieve some quite unreal results here. So this is another step where somewhat similar to Moore's law, where Moore's law was disrupted by the discontinuation of specific technologies due to their physical limitations. But still, Moore's law continued after the innovation happened for a new technology to take its place. And so we sort of see the same thing here. You have this pull, this economic pull effect on the development of AI that says that, of course, we need another development because it's highly valuable for me as an investor. And so I will put a lot of talent towards this because I believe in it as well. And there's no fundamental, like, first principles physics reason that it won't work. And so that's what we've seen now, and what Marius has also updated on from before, where he had a 30% chance that it would work, and now it seems to work. So these are some of the reasons for thinking you have short timelines. Of course, you might ask then, how can we make sure that AIs are safe? So Marius lays out a few principles that we need to hit at a minimum. Specifically, we need to hit two things. One is that the model weights are secure. This means that algorithms such as the ones that created O3, but also the actual model weights, which might be half a terabyte or something that can fit on a USB stick, that they are secured on servers that are not accessible by anyone else. He mentions further down that he expects this to happen with the support of a US government military complex. So there's some sort of cybersecurity support, some sort of like protection against adversarial nations and so on and so forth. What he mentions here as well is the SL4 level, which is the safety level 4 as defined in Rand's Securing AI Model Weights paper. And this is a report on the levels, on a principle where you define these responsible scaling laws, or responsible scaling policies, where you define levels of risk, and then you have corresponding mitigation of those risks that appear at different capability levels. And so this SL4 is just highly capable AIs. You can imagine ones that are able to autonomously attack digital systems or something like this. And the second one that he wants to be sure of once we get there is that the first AIs that significantly speed up AI safety research and AI research in general, that they are aligned and that they are not successfully scheming, that they are not trying to fool the human operators. And of course, the second part is also one that in general is the plan for Anthropic. They're of course going at it with the mindset that, okay, we're going to develop it first because we have the safety mindset, and then since we develop it first, we can make sure that the first version indeed fits the bill for what Marius talks about here. So these are the two things. Again, that the model is secure, that the AI is secure on a server that cannot be accessed by adversarial actors, and that the first AI isn't evil, basically. And he mentions that the default scenario, as I mentioned, has involvement from US military, US government, US intelligence agencies, and that it's almost entirely in the US. And there is one or very, very few of these endeavors to create AGI, and that it's not available to the public, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of critiques of this perspective where what Marius mentions as well is that this is the case that he would feel certain we could create some sort of safety within for us as a society, because we have just recently had releases such as the new DeepSeek models that turn out to be extremely capable, and they are released to the public. So in this sense, it doesn't seem too plausible that this will be the case, but this is like an optimistic perspective on which world we would be able to actually control things in. And he also mentions it's a minimal stable solution. Nice. Again, going down on what is the type of progress, what is the type of world we're looking at. It is a world where AI safety hasn't progressed into a new paradigm, but all of our methods are like much better at an order of magnitude or so. So no major scientific breakthroughs. We roughly have the same but better versions of the tools we currently have. No major changes in governance. So this is stuff such as governments aren't like controlling all models, running a surveillance state to control GPUs, etc., etc. And there's no major paradigm changes. I think largely I expect that we'll need to see some types of new plans arise, which is also what he's of course hinting at here, that would give rise to new assumptions for the progress on safety research. So now we get to his plan. The plan in general is one, he critiques it himself, that a better plan would have more explicit assumptions, would be more principled in its vision for why it's safe, and would also be more self-consistent. Here he just defines 2 layers of safety using this model that has been talked about a little bit in AI safety and comes from other fields, but this principle of if you have like enough layers of safety, then hopefully the risky situations will be caught at one of these layers. He's of course talking here about layer 1 and layer 2, and then he expects that we'll need a lot more, but these are the 2 that he would want to exist. Layer 1 is the one he definitely wants to exist. Layer 2 is the one that would be optional, but would be very desirable. So here are the sort of principles behind it. So in general, we should maintain a paradigm of AI development where we can trust and interpret and understand the thought process of AI. I personally think that this is this human legible chain of thought, the thoughts that an AI has when it tries to complete a task. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of recent research that shows that this will probably not be the case. And this is again one of the places where we need even better plans, and where Marius does a really admirable job with this one. And it's still, you know, not enough. It's not enough for proper safety in the full sense of the word. What he also assumes is that we only have we have a 2 to 5 times higher price for running these AIs that are safer, in the sense that there's some sort of business incentive to actually maintain safety. That means that organizations such as OpenAI or Microsoft or Google would want to spend 2 to 5 times more money on running an AI that is safer. And I think there's great cases for this, that basically if I'm a company who wants to use AI, then I don't want it to fail on me, right? I don't want it to fall apart or begin to do things on my server that I haven't asked it to do. And here, again, it's this faithful chain of thought. Again, he mentions that if it leads to a world where we cannot understand the thought process of AIs, then it's really bad. And I think, unfortunately, it does look that way. Then he talks as well about much better monitoring. So this, I think, is a case where monitoring, there's a bunch of startups working on this, and for example, organizations such as Kira and a range of startups that I've seen around, they do a lot of monitoring on the types of inputs and outputs that come from AI. And I don't actually think, I haven't heard much about the types of work that happens within AGI labs in terms of figuring out what's good and what's bad in the monitoring pipeline there. I expect a lot of that will be outsourced because it's such a massive task to actually do this. And so if we take a look here, then we'll see that he expects this to be a very, very cost-effective approach for us to develop better monitoring methods. Unfortunately, it reminds me slightly of a recent Davidad tweet, which was about how we initially, back in 2012 or whatever, when AI safety had its heyday, and before OpenAI and so on was launched, that people expected we could make like verifiably safe systems. We gave up on that. Then we were like, okay, we're gonna make like systems that are as transparent as possible and we can understand everything there. And then we have sort of given up on that as well because they are not as interpretable. And then but at least we can have human oversight, we can have humans in the loop, we can have them make the decisions. But okay, we've also actually gotten away from that with stuff like computer use, Claude, and so on and so forth. Okay, well then at least we know that we can evaluate models and we can evaluate them for safety. But it does look like now that we're entering sort of the next stage where every exam we give them is one that they will immediately saturate, which means they will immediately achieve a very, very high score on them. And so we constantly have to work really, really hard to actually create new tests for AIs. And so in this sense, I think monitoring is another step in this ladder, where we're looking at a world where, okay, the best we can really do is just do like process monitoring and figure out where and this hits a little bit on the human oversight part as well, that level. This principle of, okay, can we find all the places where it goes wrong? Specifically, Marius wants us to be able to discover when it tries to scheme, so when it tries to cheat researchers or organizations or anything like that. when it tries to seek power. We've seen that several times before. If we threaten to shut down an AI, then sometimes it wants to maintain itself. So maybe it'll hack the server it's deployed on or something similar. And we also want to test for strong, broad goal directedness. This is a little bit of a mouthful, but this basically means that we wanna figure out when it's properly directed towards a goal, or when it tries to pursue other goals within its context. And just jumping down here, he does believe that every AI lab should have a full team just to build these monitors. I think there's a high chance we already have that to some degree within Anthropic. Like, a lot of them are working on evaluations, so it is this monitoring principle here. The next point he wants us to implement is control. So Redwood Research is an organization, a small lab that has been working on this concept within AI safety called the control agenda, where we try to have where we are maximally skeptical of the AI being safe, and then we put it in a box, or we put it in some context where we can get all the value out of it as much as possible while it's still being safe. And so this actually doesn't need a human legible chain of thought, so it doesn't need us to understand what the AIs think. There's a lot in here on what types of ways we can improve control in the world at the moment, but yeah, I'll keep it at that. It's very much like cybersecurity, but on a more complex scale, since you're working with a general intelligence. And then he also mentions we want a much better and deeper understanding of scheming, understand when models and why models begin cheating their developers. He mentions as well, as I talked about before, this concept of evaluations. And this I would put somewhat under monitoring too, but developing more and more of the evaluation space. This is something we have a lot of papers on at Apart Research, where we've also evaluated ways people try to evaluate models while also developing new evaluations, since oftentimes it's not actually too reliable tests you are giving to AIs. He also mentions here another one, in terms of this like ladder of plausible methods we can use against for safety, that evals is really a way to support other strategies. And we also heard that last year or the year before in interpretability, that this was a big thing where, okay, well, interpretability will be useful for all AI safety. And I think this is correct, but it's not directly solving the problem yet. I think interpretability has gotten some headway recently, where I'm actually a little bit excited about what we can do with it. And we recently had a big research workshop on this as well, where a bunch of interesting techniques were found to use some recent interpretability techniques. But yeah, that's this on evaluations here. And then security in general, making sure that cybersecurity and defense around AIs ensures that they can't be stolen, and so on and so forth. So this includes information security teams at frontier AI companies, getting access to these frontier models before deployment so they can harden and make the model's defenses much better, so they can't escape themselves, but also so others can't grab them. So this is layer one. So just to summarize, let's jump back up here. To summarize, we want to maintain a paradigm where we can understand the AI's thoughts and where we can trust that it's faithful. So basically keep it aligned. We also want a world where we have control, and where we are able to monitor everything that might go wrong in the actions of AI. So we want to catch those 1% of cases where it goes wrong. We also want to improve our evaluation science, and we want to implement much harder and better security. Now, layer two, again, this is the optional layer. This is the layer below layer one, where we're trying to just harden the defenses even more so we are even safer. And here there is stuff like improving the alignment techniques specifically. I think this is absolutely crucial to actually achieve number one in terms of having faithful thoughts come out of the AI model while it's doing tasks. Because if we don't have proper alignment strategies, that's really going to fail. And I think we've seen a bunch of results that make us more skeptical of stuff like reinforcement learning from human feedback and in general from feedback, whereas these deliberative alignment and so on is from OpenAI, it seems to be better, but really rely on the AI being like aligned to test itself and so on and so forth. So in that sense, it becomes less and less legible to us humans and more about how good the AIs are. I think it probably is this direction it's going, but it's unfortunate because we don't have much insight into it. And of course, we want to continue all the work on AI safety that already exists, and we want to improve the transparency of the reasoning coming out of AIs, the reasoning transparency coming out of companies. So the AI companies themselves, when they're making a plan for what sort of safety do they want to implement in their models, what do they expect in terms of the capabilities of future models, they should be honest internally, and they should be honest externally as well, as much as possible. So for example, we see how Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has changed his perspectives a lot, the perspectives he communicates to the public about the risks of AI. So he wrote a few blog posts some years back on, well, it could be lights out for everyone. I think that's the exact quote. If we develop a human level AI. And then after he was asked at a Senate hearing in the US, he was asked, okay, so you mean lights out for everyone? I assume you mean employment, says a senator here. And he says, yes, I do. Of course, this was not actually what he meant, but he downplays a lot of the risks he previously mentioned as really crucial. And, everyone can wonder why he does that. Hopefully it's because he wants things to be safer, and then there's some big-brained play there. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem, you always have to evaluate things and their actions, and so we cannot really trust that necessarily, especially not if he gets $15 billion in equity, of course. Okay. And then in general, the safety first culture, I know and trust very much the safety first culture of Anthropic. They're working a lot on actually establishing a way how safety is embedded into everything, and they have these ways to ensure that people who are employed, they actually believe in the same types of risks from AI, and like are actually aligned with trying to better the world there. Nice. So Marius jumps into also a few known limitations of this in terms of what we need to solve here. And in general, he mentions that all of these sections could just be a 50-page report, of course, each of them, and how we need immensely more work on this topic that is also human digestible, and where we can actually have a plan for it. I think an interesting post that we might look at later would be David's plan for AI safety, which I've gone into depth with a few times before, and now he is running part of the UK's ARIA, their funding program for some of this AI safety work, where he has some ideas for what are the concrete steps we need to take to get to the place where we are safe. And then he has a diagram of this, and maybe these are the types of things that we can make progress on, and then fill out the progress bar as we are actually doing research projects. So yeah, this is the little overview. I hope it was a pleasure. I want to thank Marius for this great post. It also reflects a lot of our recent work within About Research in terms of what are the types of strategies we're looking at within this O3 world. Yeah, thank you very much for watching as well, and I hope it was informative. Remember to like and subscribe. I think that's what they say.